this way. Okay, perfect. How do I pronounce your name properly? I would say ALIYAH, but
That's how most people pronounce it, but it's ALIYAH.
ALIYAH. Okay, easier. That's like in French, ALIYAH. So that's easier for me. That's even better. So,
Perfect.
well, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We um, we first want to congratulate you on your performance on the Force 5 OCR challenge.
Thank you.
Many times you had the best score overall.
It was a lot of hard work, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, many times. Even like you beat most of the pros, like all the time.
I know a lot of it on the grip stuff, not so much the running stuff, but and the men. I beat the men too.
That's interesting. Did you see the interview I did last week
I don't think I caught that one.
with Tiffany? So one big thing I was talking about to her is like I'm new to OCR, right? It's something. I mean, I own the company with Carl, but my specialty is sailboats and CrossFit. So totally out of not the same thing at all. But there is one thing from my two former sport that I really like, sailing and in CrossFit, that we give a huge airtime, same prizes, same stuff. Like basically, the guys and girls do the same thing in all these sports. For a very long time, actually, I sailed with a girl. We're against guys and we're kicking ass. In CrossFit, like if you're the world champion, whether you're a guy or girl, you get the same money, the same airtime on ESPN, all this. I really like that. And so for the OCR challenge, I wanted to bring that. Like we went back and forth with like, should we make the girls have like a lighter backpack? Should we change like some of us? And I was like, no, I want the girls to be able to show that they're gonna beat most of the guys. The top girls will beat most of the guys at the exact same thing, which is what you did. So I'm really happy this happened.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed beating the men.
That's good. That's good because um, I think that's one reason why people might want to start OCR because they can do stuff that they thought not necessarily they thought only men could do, but they thought that only athletes could do. They thought that they would never be able to do it, and then they surprised themselves at beating a lot of people they didn't think they would. Like, is
Yeah,
this? Have you always been an athlete?
I have a lot of different sports. I actually really like CrossFit. I just don't do it anymore because I had back surgery. So the heavy loads sometimes get me. But I still compete just for fun whenever I want to, just because I like it so much. And then I rode in college too.
Oh,
And
were you on what, single, four, double, eight?
uh, mainly an 8, but I've also raced in a 4 and a single. Ugh, the single is a little scary.
Yeah, why?
Just because the balance and the oars in each of the hands. Whereas if you're in an 8, typically you only have one, 4 on the one side, 4 on the other side. So you're doing everything if you're in the single. Balance, direction to make sure you go in a straight line. So it's fun, but it's scary.
So you basically hated me, right? All the rowers hated the sailors because when there's wind, you can't row. And that's
The
like when we see the rowboats out, we're like, shit, there's no wind.
the wind makes rowing much more challenging for sure, especially headwind. We like tailwind, but headwind not so much.
Yeah. Where did you do that? Which university?
Ithaca in upstate New York.
Cool. So the water wasn't that warm.
No, it was cold, and we rode in the winter, the spring, and so the water would hit you and it would just freeze. But you had like jackets and stuff on. Yeah, it was cold, definitely cold.
That's maybe why you're a tough cookie. Right? Like,
Trying to align the bad weather, and you just gotta get through it.
so as far as virtual racing, how did you like the experience?
I like this experience. I'm not typically a huge fan of virtual competitions because it's not the same. And I liked that there was a good mix of elements, and it wasn't just go run this and say you completed it. There was actually a competition piece, and it was very clever how you guys incorporated things that anybody could have in their house or around their neighborhood.
Yeah, I have nightmares when I go take my shower and I look at the towels.
I still have a set of mine up, and I walk by them, I'm like, no.
So that hanging one was my least favorite, like, because I had to redo it many times. I mean, I didn't post my scores because I was the judge and I didn't want people to be like, hey, like, you did a good score or whatever because you knew the events, but I wanted to like feel what you guys were gonna feel and be able to like try to cheat it. So this way I can find with the right rules. And that one definitely got my forums.
Yeah, that one was an interesting one.
You
I
destroyed it. Like you did
that
it.
one.
I watched your video right away because I was like, there may be a mistake there.
No mistake. That one, I actually did that one multiple times, and my first one I did was my best hang time because I was almost at 3 minutes before I came down the first set without coming down. And then I wasn't anticipating doing so well, like so long. So my lunges were a little bit slower than my second trial and third trial. Um, and then when I got back up for my second hang on that one, uh, I like I couldn't hold on anymore with like the last I think 7 seconds. And then I redid it a couple of times, and each time I actually got faster, even though my hang sets increased. I think I mainly did them in like three or
Yeah,
four
three.
sets
I think you
after
did
that
three
one.
sets in the
Three,
one I
yeah.
saw. Yeah. Yeah.
But the first one, it was going to be 2 sets, and I just wasn't moving. It was more mentality of, oh, we'll try this out. You're doing better than you thought you would, and yeah, so.
How much do you like competition? Like, do you do OCRs because you like to do competitions and you need it after rowing and CrossFit to find something you could express that competitive edge? Or is it because like you enjoy, I don't know, climbing and hanging and stuff like this? How does it work?
Mainly because I enjoy competing, and I do different sports because it keeps me engaged and it always helps me transfer over to something else that I do. But when I finished college, I was in grad school and I rode after grad school, and I actually did my first Spartan race after college because I was looking for something. And then a CrossFit gym opened up where I was going. I was like, oh, let me use CrossFit to train for this. And I never went back to OCR. I just dove right into CrossFit and started competing in that. And then recently, in 2018, it just stumbled upon the OCR stuff. And the fact that I can compete in it, I really like. I like working out and being physically active, but I like competing even more. So right now it's like killing me that we're not racing and competing because it just feels really good. And so I like that feeling and that effort that goes into it.
And how, so that's really cool. I mean, I'm a little bit the same. Like competition for me is really important. Um, and usually I'll choose the sport that allows me to compete over the sport that I necessarily like love the most, because that ends up making me love that sport that I can compete. How do you cope with not finishing first or finishing first? Like, I mean, there, like you easily won, right?
That, that's tough. Neither actually are satisfying. winning isn't very satisfying, and definitely not winning is not satisfying. But winning, it feels good to win for a moment, and then for me, I've already moved on to the next thing. So it's not a feeling that lasts for a long time, because I start to assess, well, how could I have done better? I should have been faster, or I have a race next week. Okay, I won this. What am I going to do next week? And then if I don't win, uh, because I messed up, like I missed an obstacle that I shouldn't have missed, I spend a lot of time thinking about what happened and why I messed up. Especially if I shouldn't have messed up, like anything grip wise, because I like grip, the technical ones. I feel like I shouldn't mess up on those, and so if I do, it like haunts me. So
That's cool. So basically, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that like you use competition to stretch yourself like a little bit further every time, because whether you win or lose, you're already like thinking of how you can improve.
yes, I use competition as a way to improve. But when I do competitions, I'm not signing up for it to compare myself to a previous performance. I like that feeling. And sometimes I'll just sign up for one days beforehand, because it's like, ooh, should I do this? Should I not do it? This is crazy. And that feeling, that um, thrill of that, of not knowing how I'm going to do, is what is most satisfying. And I would agree with you, that I want to see how far and how much I can improve. So even if you win, and if you win by a lot, then it's like, ooh, should I have done a harder competition? Or if I didn't win by a lot, should I have somehow ran faster? Could I run faster? What do I need to do to figure those things out?
So does this mean that next year I can already just send you one option and you can only register in the pro division?
uh, I actually was. I couldn't decide which one to do, because I actually thought there was going to be more running in it, and I'm a decent runner, but I'm not the best runner, and that bothers me. And so that's the only reason I didn't sign up for pro, was because I didn't think I could hang with the pros in the running. And I actually, when we were doing the competition, because I'm crazy and I like competition, I made my own sheet of scores with the pros and with the top ladies in my division, to see where I would fall each week. And I was like, man, maybe I should have done pro. I would have been first. And then at the end of it, I think I would have been second, because of those two runs. Um, but if you only sent me one option, I probably would do whatever someone sent me. But I like doing the elites and the pros, um, division. I'm, if I'll be frank, that's why I like how Savage Race does theirs. They have elite, and you do elite, but if you're not one of those top three, you automatically roll over into the age division, as opposed to having two separate races for pro and for the elite.
Yeah,
Like,
that's something that we're debating for next year, to or to even just have like one giant score, and then after you can actually see where you would have placed in like your age category, for example,
that
or
would
in your
be,
beginner category. And like you said, if you're in the top 10, then you're not, you stay in the pros, like you can't roll over in the next one. Actually, think, I mean, if you come from CrossFit, you know that's what we do sometimes. That potentially for some races in OCR, it could be a good way to select who is pro, to do some sort of prior test, and everyone does the same test, and then this way, maybe it doesn't qualify you for pro or qualify you, but maybe it just puts you like in a heat or like a start time with all the people that were close to you. And then this way, you'll get a better competition, right?
It's always interesting because some people definitely like to stay in the category that they know that they'll do well in. I don't mind losing because then it just makes me work so much harder. Um, and I've been like figuring out at what point can I transition to pro. Um, and when I look at the times for certain races, um, that's how I try to figure it out. And then throughout the season, I stay with whatever I choose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's really good. How would you help someone that has a hard time with competition? Let me explain. Like it sounds like you have a growth mindset, which means that you are not defined by your short-term result. You're defined by the effort you're willing to put in to improve. But a lot of people have a false assumption that they will be judged forever by one result they got. Like, for example, and if we take it outside of a sport, like for example, if in kindergarten they fail the entry test, like they feel forever they're stupid. Even if they get a PhD later on, they're like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit slow. And I'm like, listen, you're a doctor, you're not slow. But anyway, you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, from your experience in sport, like change your mindset, because it is upsetting to lose, whether you're used to it or not. Like it is upsetting, right? Everyone, like to some point, would rather win. But how did you struggle with that earlier on, and how did you teach yourself to accept that basically losing will push you to go further?
Well, I'm also a coach, so that teaching people that um, is challenging, especially if they want to compete. And it's always easier to tell someone how to do it than practice it, that element. And I think for me, um, I do get stuck on the elements. Um, hold on. When that happens to me, I obsess a little bit about what I did wrong. And for somebody who's new, they need to understand that there's a certain period of time that is you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to be frustrated. Yes, people who are your friends who care about you will tell you it's just one race, it's just one obstacle, don't worry about it. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to internalize it a little bit, to a certain extent, depending on how competitive you want to be. I think more competitive people internalize it a bit more, so they're really processing it. Some get beat themselves down over it, and I'm I'm not necessarily a pleasant person to be around during that period of time. But once I get over it, I dive very hard into my training to make up for it. And I think some of that came from when I was younger. I did sports a lot, but my dad trained me for different things. Um, And I can remember times where I would be training for cross country, and he would say, "Oh, run to the next intersection, and I'll pick you up." And he'd be in the car, and he would drive past the intersection. So then I'm trying to catch the car, and he just keeps driving away. And that's almost like your goals. Your goals are always further than you think they are, because once you reach a point or you reach a goal, there's another goal. And so for beginners who might have hiccups along the way, that's going to happen. The pros have hiccups. Everybody has hiccups. None of us have perfect races, um, especially all the time. And as a newbie, you have to understand that it's just an occurrence, not a trend. And if it is a trend, then it might come down to how you're training or something else. It could be your nutrition, it could be sleep, if it's a trend, which is over a long period of time versus one race, one obstacle, and it doesn't define you. It might feel like it does in that moment and for that next week, because it hurts, it sucks. That happened to me at Worlds this year. um, and but then when you think about it, it might make you work harder, because you're like, yeah, I messed up on that. I'm going to be so good at that obstacle next year because I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you adjust your training to help you.
That's good. Thanks for that. Without, so you opened the door to like nutrition and sleep and all this. So what does your training regimen look like? Like including like without going into secrets, you don't have to go, but do you have a coach? Like, do you take into consideration like nutrition a lot? Are you crazy about sleep and recovery? Like, what defines you like for your training regimen?
Um, so for me, I'm kind of, when I say I'm all over the place, I mean I'm very regimented, but if I want to do something, my training should allow me to do whatever I want to do, whether that is a spur of the moment CrossFit competition, a strongman competition, um, an OCR race, and that's how I like to think of it. Um, and that's how I train like that. And I was on a competitive CrossFit program um, when I was the before I got into OCR, and I got second in a race, and I qualified to go to the North America Championship. And my buddy, who was the one who doing the CrossFit competitors program, I was like, "Hey, I have like a race in 4 weeks. Do we think can we change some stuff?" And so then he tweaked things, and since then he's been doing my program ever since. Um, so he's a friend. He's a fellow CrossFit person. So I trust him. And if you have someone who's programming for you, you have to trust them, which is really hard. So my training almost resembles CrossFit to a certain extent, meaning it could have anything in it. So there's some powerlifting, there's some Olympic lifting. You can bet your butt there's running in it, agility, a lot of grip work, um, and then auxiliary work, because you got to make sure your small muscles are holding up, as because your big muscles get tired sometimes. For nutrition, I eat relatively healthy. anyway. And every so often, I'll might reach out to somebody to assist me with my nutrition just to make sure I have it dialed in okay. And I used to compete in some bodybuilding, so I did figure competitions, which is very minimal food as you get closer to show. And I got stuck in that cycle of eating for a bit, which is hard when you do it day in and day out to break a habit. And um, so recently, this summer, I started working with someone for 10 weeks to help me readjust my eating. And so far, it's been good. And you always got to make sure you have the good balance of carbs, fats, and proteins for yourself because everybody's different. And it takes a little bit to figure out what your body wants to perform. So, and sleep, I love sleep. I probably don't get as much as I should, but I like to sleep. And if I work out really hard, I'm definitely going to be tired.
Cool. And then you said you were a coach. Is that your full-time job?
um, for well, yes and no. So I work for a company as their health and wellness specialist. So I oversee their well-being and fitness programs, and a big component of that is working in the gym where I teach about 15 classes a week, and then I do personal training. I used to work at a CrossFit gym, but not anymore with my with the closures and everything like that. Um, so I'm
Cool.
a coach in a corporate world.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very cool. And so you touched a little bit on your back injury. How did you? I mean, as much as you want to talk about it or not, but how did you go through this? Because that's usually one of the biggest setback for an athlete is to have an injury that prevents you from training, prevents you from competing. So did that go to that point, or and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so in 2015, in August, I had back surgery for herniated disc. Um, there was no specific incident that caused the injury. Um, so from my thinking, because I still think about it, it was probably wear and tear over time. Because I rode in college, so it's a lot of flexion and extension of the back, and then CrossFit, a lot of heavy lifting, just all compiled together. Um, and so then I ended up getting surgery. Um, it was I never want to go through that again. And I've had a lot of injuries over my lifetime. But that one was hard because I couldn't do anything. Um, like I had to, my mom and my sister had to actually help me, so they lived with me for a period of time. Uh, well, it was only probably like 2 weeks, but it felt forever. And to help me get in and out of the shower, to change the dressings on my back, to give me the medicine. And I remember the doctor had said, yeah, walk as much as you want. And I think after that first day of the surgery, every day I walked. Probably not more than I should, but I was so tired from my body recovering and the walking. I did so much sleeping. But I walked very slow, not walk fast at all. Um, and because I am a self-motivated person, um, I don't like feeling like I can't do things. And that surgery did that to me. I was definitely not happy during that time frame. because it's not very exciting to say, ooh, I walked a mile in 25 minutes. People run a mile in 4 minutes, so it's a little, it was a little depressing for a period of time. And I did my PT for myself because I was able to give it to myself. And I actually competed in a CrossFit competition 6 months after surgery. And I used that time afterwards to commit myself to bodybuilding as a way to balance out my muscles. And I decided to compete in a in a bodybuilding competition, so I would stay motivated, because I don't particularly find those exercises all that exciting day in and day out, because those competitions are for aesthetics. And so 6 months after surgery, I competed in CrossFit competition. And then I think 2 months after that, I competed in another one and I won. And then continued with the bodybuilding. So pretty much it was, I'm someone who needs physical activity. So you take it away from me with an injury, I will find a way around it to somehow get my body to be physically active. There's always a way. I'm a coach, so I know what not to do and what to do. And there's always limits. And when you get close to towing that line, you have to be so in tune with your body that you don't overstep the boundaries to re-injure yourself.
Sounds like you found a good balance, though.
I know my body pretty well.
Actually, I talked to someone, and like basically, you probably are on balance, and that's why like you do very well. Because he's like, people that are balanced are really boring. You don't sound like a boring person. So, yeah, that, like you said, we don't like ordinary.
No.
But one thing I was thinking about is what is next for you? What are your next challenges? Because like you seem like you have like a bunch of challenges like listed either on a piece of paper or in your mind, or you're always like actively trying to find one. Is there like something that for the next 2, 3, 5 years like is your goal?
It might change in 5 years. 5 years is a long time to be doing OCR. I really want to be able to compete at the pro level, and not just to do it. There's a difference between doing it and competing at that level. Competing at that level means you're with the top group. I mean, I could do it now, but I'd probably be not where I wanted to be to actually be competitive.
Yeah, well, I mean, the excitement of any athlete is to line up on a starting line knowing you have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Right? Like
That's
if you line up in a starting line knowing you're going to finish last, why are you going to do it?
that is a good point. But I'd probably say that that's my goal right now. And I have been getting faster, which is exciting. I actually had, speaking of injuries, I had an injury in December 2018. So right after the first time I went to Worlds, and I had something to build off of. And then I injured my hamstring rock climbing, and which was a massive setback because I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything to get me faster in OCR. So I did a lot of upper body stuff. And all last year, when I could start running again, was trying to make up all those months that I lost. Because if you're a competitive athlete, not everybody, but most people to a certain extent will think, man, where would I have been if I didn't hurt myself? And all these people who are still training are now months ahead of where I was, because they didn't have an injury or something preventing them. And so finally, after this past Worlds, I've been able to build up my running speed and endurance without any injuries. So yeah, so I want to see how fast I can get, because that's not always hard. That's not always easy to do, to find your limit, because you have to be really comfortable with being uncomfortable to find a limit.
I like that. I like that. I think that's a good end of your little segment. I have nothing to add.